sleep and smile so comfortable. I just wish that I could give you that.
All righty. Hello, everyone. Apologies, I have not perfected my fade in music, but thank you so much for taking time to come along tonight. My name is Jess, and I'm the University Programs Manager at Canva. And tonight I am joined by Senior Frontend Developer Tomek Madrinsky, who's going to kind of be taking you through all things frontend at Canva. So to kick us off, I'm going to be taking us through a little bit about who Canva is, life at Canva, and of course, opportunities available to you all. So just want to confirm we can see a nice seamless transition of slides. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so if you haven't heard of Canva before, we are an online design platform empowering over 50 million monthly active users. So whether you're looking for a beautiful Instagram story, design, or maybe you're pitching your brand new startup, there's bound to be a template for you. So before Canva, the usual way of creating good design is pretty complex. You had to purchase Adobe, casually study design for 3 to 4 years, purchase and download stock photos, fonts, layouts, all to finally be able to prepare for web and print. Design was definitely for those finite few. And that's why Canva was born. So we wanted to create an online platform where you can collaborate, have quick access to pro tools, library of millions of images, which is growing even more, and really be able to publish anything, anywhere. And look, if we've learned anything in the last year, it's the fact that, visual design and communication is so important. But not to worry, we've got heaps of interesting projects to still tackle because in the words of our CEO, Melanie Perkins, we're only 1% of the way there. So what is actually Canva trying to achieve? Why are we here? At Canva, our mission is to empower the world to design. So that's empowering absolutely everyone to design anything with every ingredient in every language on every device with the best team in the world. Now, a little flashback to Canva's early days. This is actually 2 of our founders, Mel and Cliff, in Mel's mum's living room. So Canva was founded in Sydney, Australia in 2012. And in the first year, we had over 750,000 users. But bringing it forward to today, we are over 1,000 Canvanauts in offices across the world, and we're valued at $6 billion US, which is awesome because when you join Canva, you become a part owner, which means one day we can all afford shoebox apartments in Sydney because that is the real estate market. But hey. Now, to achieve our mission, our crazy big goal, we need our people to grow, thrive, and do the best work of their lives. And to guide us to getting to do that is our values. So our values are at the heart of everything we do. They're the spirit behind every action and intention here at Canva, helping us create a workplace where everyone can thrive. So no matter what your role is, where you're based, or what your goals are, our values act as a universal guide to help you do the best work of your life. So I'm going to show you a quick video which summarizes our values.
Where do you want me to look?
Wait, I'm not ready.
I'm a bit camera conscious. So. Hey. Do you know the purpose of this?
I have no idea what's going on. And action.
How would you describe our culture?
The culture here at Canva is
all about creating a strong sense of belonging.
At an organisation like this, the culture kind of binds people together and helps them move in a certain direction.
It's probably the most cliche thing to say, but it always comes back to the people and the vibe around it.
I really enjoy coming into work every day because all my friends are here.
feels like I'm at uni, but I'm doing something really nice for the world.
What are the values?
Our values, I think, set us apart.
The thing that struck me the most when I first came in here
was the values.
Everything we do as the Vibe team are rooted in Canva's values.
The 6 values that we've got at the moment are be a force for good.
Be a good human, that's super important.
Set crazy big goals and make them happen.
Empower others.
Make complex things simple.
Let's see.
There's 6 of them, right?
I always forget the 6th one just because there's 6 of them.
And pursue excellence.
That's the one, that's the swim lane one.
Everyone that we hire here in Canva embodies those values.
I've never cared so much about recycling before in my life. I've not encountered any other company who has a value that says be a good human.
At the end of the day, it's about us curating the kind of place where we do the best work of our lives.
Cut.
Now at Canva, we sure do work hard, but we're always sure to take time to celebrate. So whether it's releasing doves off our rooftop in Surrey Hills, open air cinema, cocktail classes, lawn bowls, pasta making classes, virtual reality, we always make time to come together, reflect on what we achieved as a team. Now, I've mentioned this sentence a few times today, do the best work of your lives at Canva. But what does this actually mean? So when you come to work at Canva, we want you to feel recognized, to feel supported, to be able to bring your whole self to work and ensure that we're creating an environment where everyone belongs and feels included. At Canva, we have a huge responsibility to champion diversity everywhere across our product, our organization, and our community. And as we continue to improve and build on our design tool, we promise to continue holding ourselves accountable for introducing new measures to ensure a more diverse and inclusive platform in hopes of creating lasting change. For our team, it looks like this: to build a team that better represents our community and our world, whilst ensuring that every team member feels like they truly belong at Canva and have equal opportunities here. And we're the first to admit that we have a long way to go, but we're committed to this journey. We're on to becoming a celebration of diversity. So as we enter into Tomek's talk, I'm going to leave you with a question. Are you ready to do the best work of your life at Canva? We've just opened up our summer internship roles for front-end engineering and back-end engineering. Soon to come is data science and UX design. And we also have graduate positions with start dates every 2 weeks, with other roles opening up almost daily. So please visit canva.com/careers. My name is Jess. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me on LinkedIn or as a follow-up. But Tomek, over to you.
Thank you, Jess. Let me do the clicky thing for sharing my screen first. This one. Jess, can you confirm this is the presentation, not my speaker notes?
Looks great.
Cool. All right. Hey, everyone. Thanks for coming here to the talk. Great to see so many of you here who are interested in front-end engineering at Canva. I'm going to briefly walk you through the reasons why I believe we have a wonderful, really wonderful development experience. Hope you enjoy it. And if you have any questions, we'll be more than happy to answer them after I'm done speaking. So let's get this quickly out of our way so we can focus on the content. I have master's degree in computer science with specialization in databases from the Wrocław University of Science and Technology. I started my professional career in 2013, soon after graduating, though I've been messing with writing code since I was 8 years old. I started with HTML and the wonderful experience of putting my creations up for anyone to see on the web. And I discovered that you can make pages more dynamic with PHP. Professionally, I began as a Python developer, working mostly on the backend, and I expanded to cover both backend and frontend. I've been also leading engineering teams from technical, process, and people perspectives. I joined Canva in 2017. I started in the presentations group, working on the experience you see right now, then moved to the enterprise team, and right now I'm in the teams group. Let me quickly retell the story of Canva. The work will be very brief, and I'll focus on why I'm here, that is front-end technologies. It all started in 2013 when Canva officially launched and started getting traction. The product was successful and started getting more users, and they started paying us money. The engineering team began to slowly grow. Fast forward 4 years to 4 years later, Canva has been growing faster and faster, and we are getting more and more users, happy users, and more revenue. This all felt great, but the underlying front-end foundations were not in that great shape. 90% of the core editing code was spread across 2 massive files. One of them you can see on the screen with almost 9,000 lines of code, with only 2 people in the whole company who knew the inner workings of the editor and could make and review changes. However, even with this level of knowledge, the impact of changes was often unknown. Our testing wasn't extensive enough, which led to regressions making their way to production. This is when a decision was made to undertake a massive, gigantic project for writing the code base using the learnings, solid engineering principles, and more modern and battle-tested technology stack. It was codenamed E2 from Editor 2 or Web 2. It was a bet and a really risky one. The typical story of a giant rewrite usually does not end well. There are major examples in the history, for example, the Netscape web browser. Luckily for us, it paid off. It took roughly 18 months, but we ended up with foundations which were much more stable and scalable. Fast forward another 4 years, and we are here. On top of our existing publish options as download as file, which existed 4 years ago, we've added direct publishing support to Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, and hundreds more endpoints. We enabled third-party developers to build their own applications like Canva. We added support for text effects, which is incredibly hard to support across multiple browsers and devices. And recently we added support for new media types such as videos, stickers, and audio to keep up with the ever-changing digital landscape. All of that would be impossible if we remained in the old code base. So let's briefly talk about where we are today in terms of the engineering crew. If you go to the Zoom chat, I will ask a couple of questions and you can try to guess what the numbers I will present on the screen are. So here are 2 numbers here. Can you try guessing what these are? I'll wait for a few seconds to see some responses before proceeding. Yep. It's definitely, it's not technical, it's about humans, as a couple of people responded. So the top one is the number of engineers total at Canva working in the engineering specialty, which includes software engineers, security engineers, data engineers, infrastructure engineers, and so on. Whereas the lower one is just the front-enders. There's almost 300 of us. Now, more numbers. What are these numbers? What do these numbers mean? These ones, remember we're talking about front end and we're talking about engineering things. At the moment, I checked yesterday, we had over 1,900,000 lines of TypeScript code, excluding blank lines, comments, and so on. And just last week, we had almost 650 front-end pull requests merged to our master branch. That's roughly 1 pull request being merged every 4 minutes of a typical workday. So I think this introduction gives you the overview of the scale we operate at. Now I want to focus on the juicy part of this presentation. What makes Canva engineering and Canva frontend a really great environment? There are four aspects I want to focus on: solid foundations, great environment, focus on the user, and people. Let's start with solid foundations. The 3 main technology choices Canva frontend is built upon are TypeScript, React, and Molex. I'll briefly introduce them and then talk why I think they are awesome. TypeScript is our language of choice for front-end development. It's an extension of JavaScript which adds support for static type safety and which evolves together with JavaScript. Type safety enhances your code base in an incredible way. It shortens the feedback loop and provides quicker insight into issues with your code. It's important when you work in a team, and especially important when it's a team of 300 other engineers. On top of using TypeScript as a language of choice to build Canva, we also use it for a handful of front-end tooling, from build tooling to various command line tools. In this example shown on the screen, you can see one of the cool features of TypeScript: time discrimination. A user object can be either a guest member or a member, and each of them will have shared properties and properties available on the subtype. Tasker will ensure that you can't accidentally access properties which are not defined for a subtype, as shown in line 52. Since my background is Python, I was a few years ago opposed to type safety, to static typing, because I felt it would slow me down. After working on a Canva scale, I think it's really an important factor that we should bring more into software engineering. The UI part of our tech stack is based on React. React is a battle-proven library for creating declarative views and interfaces. Among many benefits of React, I think the most important ones would be focus on separation of concerns. Data layer and state layers are separated from the visual layer, and they can move separately at different speeds. React encourages writing smaller chunks of code, which are then composed. Ideally, one component should have just one job. As, for example, seen here, the batch component will just render the batch. It won't make any assumptions about anything else. React is predictable. So if you give it the same state and the same props, it should give the same output, which makes it much easier to cover with various types of tests. And lastly, the benefit of React lies in the virtual DOM, which gives performance boost by changing only those DOM nodes in the browser which were affected by re-rendering. So basically, it means using virtual DOM in a web application like Canva will be much faster. The last foundational piece is MobX. It is a state management library focusing on minimalizing the boilerplate. It works on extending the default JavaScript getters and setters when used with a decorator, so that they behave like observables. When updating such observable, under the hood MobX keeps track of all the observers relying on its value and triggers their reevaluation. In particular, as you can see on this example, this plays really nicely with React, where MobX will keep track of which components need to be re-rendered whenever state changes. Moreover, all state is just plain JavaScript object constructors, which makes writing code around state management really easy. So on the screen, you can see a very simple component, which is just a label or just a string and the button. After clicking the button, it will update the state. It will increment the count property of the store, and incrementing it will trigger MobX to re-render the component. All of this happens without writing any boilerplate code. The second part, why Canva frontend environment is environment. Why engineering at Canva is great environment. I think this is an important aspect which makes it really, really awesome to be here. These are the tools that keep developers happy because we can move faster and ship value to users faster. So we rely on Webpack with heavily customized config and our own plugins to tailor it to our needs. Moreover, we're constantly making it faster and faster, which is a challenge with a code base of our size. And I just realized I didn't mention what Webpack is. Webpack we use Webpack to transform our source codes into build artifacts, which are then served in a browser to users. So it's a compilation, transpilation, minification, all that together. We use several uncommon tools to enhance our build system. One of them is Google Closure Compiler, which minifies and optimizes the code. It does it several times better than other open source alternatives, thanks to not only obvious things like renaming variables, but also by inspecting and simplifying the code. So on this example, on the left, you see two functions, and there is an if statement in one of them. Closure Compiler is smart enough to detect that the previous function is not used at all, and also that the else branch of the if will never be entered, and therefore simplify everything to just one console log. Lastly, Canva-wide, we use Bazel for managing all build processes. It allows for writing build pipelines in a declarative and functional way, where running the build with the same input will always give the same give the same artifacts out without any side effects. The main benefit is reproducibility and ability to share artifacts among engineers. For example, if I build the branch X, Bazel can store the output of the build on a central server, so that when another engineer tries to build the same branch, they will simply download the stored result without having to rebuild. Click. Another thing which is important which is an important factor, is something we call the fake mode. Fake mode is essentially Canva frontend running entirely in memory with no connection to any real services or APIs. We use service fakes and stubs to produce fake data and results. There are simulated delays to demonstrate loading states where necessary. It's a critical piece of tooling that is used heavily when developing features locally. So the video you can see right now demonstrates the Canva editor running in a fake mode. This is a fully functional experience and allows engineers to quickly make changes and manually verify them without running any backend. Moreover, we also utilize something called the proxy mode. After running the branch on your local machine, you can connect to real backend instances running in the cloud. This drastically speeds up the development, as you don't need to set up and maintain local backend instances, which, by the way, is also very easy to do. It's just proxying takes less than a minute, whereas bringing backends up on your local MacBook can take up to 50 minutes, depending on what you need to run. And the bonus benefit is that all the data that you create in a proxy mode is stored in the cloud. So you can, for example, create your team, users, designs, and then switch a branch and retrieve what you created before. On top of being able to build the branch yourself, you can also rely on the continuous integration environment. We use Build Guide as our CI of choice, and it's fully integrated with GitHub. After leaving a comment on your pull request, the CI will determine which jobs need to be run for those changes, and it will also report back under the pull request whether the build has passed or failed. One particular step of building a branch on the CI is also deploying the artifacts to the cloud, allowing it to run the application, in this case, the highlighted editor in the fake mode. This makes it extremely easy to share a link to your branch with others, for example, designers or product managers, and show them your changes. Also, what is not shown here, because I think this is I'll screenshot, is at the moment the CI will also manage merging your branch to the master branch automatically. So you just run the build, and you can forget about the PR until you get notification whether it was merged successfully or not. Tests are important parts of software development. They ensure that your code works as expected, help with detecting regressions, and can help you validate edge cases. We use Jest to run unit tests which validate particular units of code, usually classes or React components. By using the testing library, that's the name, by the way, we can render and interact with React components as if it was in real browser. Plus, we heavily rely on snapshot testing, which capture the HTML output of a particular component and store it in a repository. If changes to the code make the component produce different output, an engineer needs to explicitly update the snapshots. Moreover, we also write end-to-end tests, which launch the web browser and simulate how a real user would interact with Canva. This helps us catch issues with how things are glued together and whether different features interact with each other in an expected way. Another tool we use is the Storybook. Storybook facilitates development of components in total isolation and allows engineers to demonstrate all visual states in one easy-to-see place. Instead of launching an entire application just to see how your components look and behave like, with Storybook, we can render only the pieces you care about. Storybook is also used in the visual regression testing to ensure that no unintended visual change goes unseen. This slide shows our visual regression tool, Percy, showing a visual diff of a CSS change that has been made to the component. In addition to the visual regression testing, we also use Storybook to collaborate with designers on visual changes that they may be requesting in order to refine the requirements. At the scale of Canva, we have a range of bots further enhancing the experience. One I want to mention is the deploy notifier, which will inform you when the changes you merged are going to hit staging or production environment, and therefore real users. At the moment, we release Canva every weekday, and we are moving towards continuous releases. The second bot is Larry Thomas, which is the watchman making sure that the master branch is always green, as in it has the build for master branch always passes and doesn't contain any errors. Mistakes happen, and so something may get merged by accident. In case the build does not pass, this bot will automatically revert your commit and ping you on Slack. This decreases the frustration of other developers who don't need to investigate if it was their changes that broke the build. Lastly, Each front-end engineer at Canva must focus not only on writing the scalable and performant code, but also care about the end user experience. And there are several categories here beyond just general delight. The first one is accessibility. All visual changes we make must be accessible, which means complying with several checks. For example, colors must be distinguishable from each other for people with visual impairment, as shown on the screenshot. Contrast is a really important factor. But it's not only that. There's also things that are not visible. In this example, it must be possible to navigate to the close button using a keyboard or an input device other than a mouse. That close button and the element itself need to be written in a way that is understandable by a screen reader. And accessibility software needs to know what roles elements on the screen have to better assist the user. Another important aspect is internationalization. Majority of our user base do not speak English as their first language. In order to serve our users, Canva is available in 100 different languages. Therefore, each copy, each string users can read need to be translated into 100 languages by the time changes land in production. Our build pipelines are designed in a way which require engineers to submit strings for translations before changes can be merged. This ensures that we don't just cater to English-speaking users, but keep the entire world in mind. Another aspect is responsiveness. Our front-end code base is utilized by our mobile apps. This vastly shortens the development cycle, as a feature needs to be implemented once and then it can be run everywhere, on the web, on desktop, on iPhones, on Androids, and on several other devices. On top of simply making sure that the components still looks well when it's displayed on the device with different aspect ratios, performance is also an important aspect. We are in the business of empowering the world to design and making Canva accessible on every device, especially low-end phones, which are much more common in the world than high-end iPhones we're using. That's why the code we write needs to run smoothly under heavy performance constraints. And the last thing I wanted to mention, what makes it really amazing to work in here, is all the amazing humans contributing to the engineering specialty. All the tools I just mentioned have been carefully selected by people wanting to improve the experience for both our users as well as fellow engineers. There are a few ways how they further enhance the culture here. So this year, we've been working hard to solidify and codify engineering practices at Canva. We've done this through the inception of what we call the engineering handbook. We have enlisted engineers from around the company to work on documentation for pieces they are most familiar with. The engineering handbook paves the way forward for self-learning and references for future engineers as we continue to scale engineering at Canva. Moreover, each week there is a forum for different engineering specialty, front-end, back-end, and mobile. People come forward and speak about hard problems they recently solved, engineering changes impacting wider groups of people, or just topics they found interesting and wanted to share with others. This ensures that we keep on learning new things and don't stagnate. Every now and then, we also have company-wide activities like hackathons, where you work on novel projects outside of your day-to-day territory. A recent example was the Security Week, which happened at the beginning of February, where throughout the week, we had presentations and workshops related to security. We had the Capture the Flag competition. We also had a security day where the whole company, all the engineers, stopped whatever they were doing, and instead we focused on solving security issues with aim of making Canva more secure. And that's it. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the talk and content. And I think this is now's the time where me and Jess can answer any questions you might have.
Awesome. Thanks, Tomek. Yeah, so whether you have questions specifically around kind of our front-end stack or engineering life at Canva, this is now definitely a great opportunity, or whether you're interested in kind of Canva life in general or the recruitment process. If you are comfortable in coming off mute, please do so. Otherwise, you can drop your question in the chat.
Feel free to ask about anything. I didn't cover all the stuff, but I'm more than happy to answer some questions you might have about, for example, why didn't we choose Redux for state management? Exactly this question that just happened. Cool. Jess, do you want to take the ones for about internships and international students, and then I can take the more technical ones.
That sounds great, because I would be horrible at answering technical questions. Of course. So great question. How do you get an internship? Well, step one is you apply. So that can be found at canva.com/careers. Now we do have two pipelines, front end and back end, but the beauty of still having a startup mentality is we cater your projects to your interests. So if you're a backend engineer, but you're kind of interested in a bit more full stack space, we can do that for you. For the recruitment process, so once you've applied, you will receive a call from our graduate recruiter, Van Santos. She's awesome. Find her on LinkedIn, have a chat. And she'll take you through kind of 60 minutes of basic foundational coding knowledge, and then a little bit about you. After that, you will have a 60-minute technical interview with 1 or 2 engineers. So that's based in either Java for our backend or JavaScript for our front end. And then also a values-based interview. So this isn't necessarily an engineer. It's someone who across Canva we feel really lives the Canva values. And it's just kind of a bit of a chat, get to know you questions as well. If that answered your question. Tomek, would you like to take a technical one?
Sure. So why MobX instead of Redux? I think that's the most common question being asked by the biggest number of frontenders that have joined Canva. So in 2017, we were doing the evaluation of which technologies to use. A few engineers who are now part of the Web Foundations team did a deep dive on different technologies and evaluated how they would play out in a much bigger company. Redux was one of them. The biggest pain point with Redux was exactly the focus on the approach of having one global state for the whole application. How Canva works is different parts of the application are owned by different teams, which includes holistically owning a specific place, including state management, visuals. We have shared visuals. We have the design. We have team designers ensuring that everything looks the same. But there are different engineering teams responsible for different parts of what you see in the browser. There are different teams owning different services in the backend. And having one global state for the whole application will also mean that someone would have to own this state to make sure that there's consistency. We tried to replicate this approach. We tried to use Redux with this approach using lenses. So having a global state stored in a single place and then exposing parts of the state to different pieces of application depends on the needs. But the result wasn't good. It wasn't great to use. Around that time, we discovered MobX, and there was some initial hesitance to embrace it, because MobX is a bit magical, as in you just add the fancy decorator and everything just happens. Like you update the value and then everything is re-rendered, re-evaluated. However, we also took a look at source code for MobX, and the decision that followed was that in case, for example, we need to fork MobX because it would evolve in a way which we would like, it was simple enough for us to keep maintaining it, and it matches the criterion of having the ownership of a piece of state in different parts of application belong to a team rather than having everything in single place. The second part of the question, how the mutable state management across 300 front-end engineers. So we have 300 engineers, but we have fortunately not everyone is working in a single place. We have the videos you've seen today are for the pieces we call home and editor, so that there are two separate applications. I think home might be the most contested one because there's a lot of people working in there. One way we solve the state management is we use the dependency injection approach, and we explicitly declare what other things your thing relies on. What other things that, like your piece of code requires to be injected. So it's more code to be written, but it's easy to see, for example, who takes which part of a state, and there isn't also any magic with like your code updating another team's state. Another team's piece of code needs to expose some methods for you to update their state if they agree. I hope this covers that part of the question. Jess, do you want to take one about not engineering one? And Mozamal, if you want to clarify something, please write in the chat. I will try to answer the best I can.
Awesome. I'm going to do two questions. I'm sorry, I'm going to steal two. One, does Canva hire international students? We sure do. So if you are working with us in an internship capacity, as you are on holidays, that is absolutely a-okay to be working full-time. Sorry, I didn't clarify. Our internships are full-time, paid, and we provide relocation if you do need it. And do we have offices in Melbourne? Not yet, but we actually have about 40 people working from Melbourne. So we are now hiring graduate engineers and engineers in general who are absolutely remote. We do come together at least twice a season, so twice every 3 months to have some face-to-face time. But you never know, you may be seeing some Canva offices popping up around the place. All right, I stole two. Back to you, Tomek.
Cool. So I'm trying to scan the chat for questions. I picked ones which might be easier to answer for me. I'll try to get to all of them. Do we use styled components in production? No, we use CSS modules. We don't use styled components. We also don't use any fancy CSS pre-processor or post-processor like LESS or SAS. So most of our CSS is written in it's basically just CSS with variables. I think I'm not across why we don't use styled components specifically. There are definitely, I remember some conversations happening in Slack around 2-3 years ago, someone asking this question and getting the detailed answer. Nice thing about Canva is that most of the decisions that happen here about like choosing this technology over another is someone has a good reason and that does a thorough investigation of like what we should use. And if you come here and ask like why we're using style component, why we're not using style components, there is someone in the company which can answer this question in a great way and provide reasons like we considered style components, but for X and Y and Z they weren't fitting our purpose. So I can only say that we're not using them. What type of JavaScript questions are asked in interviews? We ask I'm not sure about how the interview for internships will look like. I can tell you more about the interview process for grads and engineers. So it's composed of 3 sessions, 3 technical sessions, and then there's 1 values interview. Each technical session is done one-on-one with one person, so it's a one-on-one, and you're asked to implement something. How specific can I be? We have a range of questions. Like there are a couple of areas we cover. Data structures, whether how capable you are with using the web technologies. We're checking your problem solving. So definitely you will be asked to write code. We don't have whiteboard questions. If there is any part of like a whiteboard, it's only to support the code you will write, and we'll be mostly looking at the code you write. And also in this area, to what extent do you value technical knowledge compared to personal qualities? For example, communication, teamwork. We're looking for both of them. That's why we're checking both the technical knowledge on the technical sessions, but also we have the values interview to ensure that you will fit our culture. And while you are here, there's also constant feedback and evaluation about your soft skills. And we try to make sure everyone here is happy, so that there might be different kinds of teams suiting your needs. But I think we expect everyone to be to communicate well, to be a great team player. Yeah, back to you, Jess.
No, I just kind of want to add on to that, Tomek.
Yep.
You said everything really well. You don't actually have to know everything. I feel like there's this big pressure that you have to know JavaScript, HTML, CSS, like the back of your hand. We can teach you these things and teach you the way Canva codes. We're looking for that foundational knowledge, your problem solving, and your communication. Just wanted to throw that in. Next up, doesn't matter if I want to apply for front-end intern but only have back-end experience. Not at all. Internships are about kind of getting experience and figuring out kind of what avenue you would like to go down. So definitely you do need to have some context over JavaScript, but this is something that you can prepare. As I said, we're looking at that foundational knowledge.
A question about QA processes. We have QAs on board. QAs doing both manual exploratory testing of. I'm actually not sure about the terminology here. Basically, every release, there's a couple of checks that we need to make sure that work on top of the automated end-to-end tests. So our QAs are looking for that, but our QAs are also looking at automating everything. So they write test scenarios. They look into ensuring that they write manual test scenarios, and then they look into automating those test scenarios. There is I would say that there might be a distinction between front-end engineers will write integration end-to-end tests, which have more narrow focus on like the particular piece of a page, whereas QAs will focus on more broadly about like the whole experience. Log into Canva, then try to upgrade your account, then go to editor, publish a design, check if your card was charged. So they cover the entire flow. I'm not sure what is meant. The second question was, do you employ dedicated test analysts? I'm not sure what you mean by test analysts. We have QAs and QA engineers, and I think they do some part of the test analyst role, but I don't think we have a dedicated test analyst role which only does that. And the first part of the question, do we automate all tests or also employ manual exploratory testing strategies? We do both. One, because so we try to automate everything, but automating end-to-end tests is hard and complex due to working with a web browser and controlling web browser is hard due to a lot of quirks, so it takes time.
Awesome. I might see, Willie, did you still have a question that you'd like to unmute yourself if you're still on the call?
Yeah, hey, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, sounds great.
Hey, just hey, Tomek. Yeah, my question was mainly from an intent point of view. You guys must get thousands or hundreds of resumes and applications. How do you, at the resume and at an interview, distinguish a normal applicant from a good one that you'd like to have at Canva? What things on a resume and during an interview really make someone stand out? That's my question.
That's a great question. Look, I think I'm going to think about this for a second because I want to answer it correctly. I think the main difference, and you kind of have to grasp as well, we're looking at majority students. So we do have those who have a little bit of industry experience, but we're actually wanting to get to know you as a person. And I think something that really comes across during the interview stage is actually your passion for the craft of computer science. If you highlight how eager you are to learn and how committed you are, and aren't afraid to kind of put your hand up and say, I don't know everything, but I want to go on that journey. I think that's a great way, because that's really aligned to our values of pursuing excellence, and we can teach you the technical stuff. So just be yourself. Honestly, I know that sounds really cliche, but you can kind of tell when people actually want to be applying and want to be working at Canva, and we're really going to harness that excitement and give you as many opportunities as we can. Does that answer your question? Tomek, would you like to add anything? You do a lot of interviews.
Nothing really. It's like, I think it sounds more scary than it is in practice. There are a couple of questions as well, like how to prepare for the technical interview, and was there one? I think there's like there's also another one, like who will be interviewing will be engineers or HR. It will be engineers. All the technical sessions are done by engineers. HR is so we have, I guess we have we can split HR into the how to call them, the HR, and there are also recruiters like Jess. Recruiters have pretty decent knowledge about technology, so it's not like they just check the checkboxes. We have dedicated recruiters for front-enders, back-enders, data, and they usually know enough to chat with you about the technology. But the actual evaluation will be done by engineers. So people basically doing the same things that you will be doing on the job. Most commonly, it won't be people from the team that you will be going to, because we try to well, I would say level the ground and make it more. Jessica probably will explain this better, because it's like people from the entire front-end specialty will interview front-enders, and the allocation to specific teams will happen later after your qualifications are evaluated, and we know that, for example, you seem to be good at performance, and we may have the opening in the performance team. This will happen later, but before that, just the interview will be done with other engineers.
Lily, did that answer your question, or would you like some more clarification? I'm happy to dive a bit deeper if you prefer. I'm going to take this.
Yeah, that did answer my question. Thank you so much. I put it in chat, but I think you're a little bit up on chat, so I think you maybe did read it.
Okay,
Awesome. Thank you so much, and thank you, Tomek.
Also, if you're putting together a resume, there's this great thing called Canva. Got heaps of resume templates. It's free.
Does that give me extra internship points?
Maybe brownie points, not internship points though.
Okay, thank you so much.
There are a couple of interesting questions. One of them is what are these distinguishing factors between whether back and the front end suits you? Just go with whatever you like. Like, it's at the end of the day, it's pretty much the same. Like, writing code is okay, it's not the same. Front end is more about getting closer to the users and making visual changes which are visible in the product. I know a couple of people at Canva who started as backenders, but then they moved to front end because they wanted to do more visual work. They wanted the changes to be visible. Whereas backend is really heavy on making sure that our data model is sane and scalable, making sure that the whatever service you're building can withstand millions of users using it, and the traffic at times we get is really huge. So it's a combination of writing resilient systems, making sure that whatever data choices you use match the expected traffic. So at the moment, we use a couple of databases. We use Amazon RDS, which is basically MySQL for most of the cases, but we also have a couple of services using Mongo. We use Solar in a couple of places, and probably other backends, other databases that I have no clue about. So basically, you are responsible for choosing the technology which will match the needs. So it's something like this is interesting to you, plus also doing some ops work, because at the end of the day, you will be responsible to keep your service alive. So it's basically your job to write code which will not fail. If it fails, it will be your job to bring it up, fix the issues. So if that's something more interesting to you, then backend might be more preferable. There was also a question about internal mobility, especially for moving from an engineering role to product management. That is an interesting topic. How it looks on paper is, after you're performing well in your current role, so you're hired as a, let's say, front-ender, you spend 2 years doing front-end, and you're doing a really great job, you can consider moving to a different specialty, but you will be given an interview and you will be evaluated as a new hire. I don't want to, like, it's definitely possible, but I don't want to sugarcoat it, so that you can join, for example, as a front-ender. 3 months later, you will switch to being product manager. 3 months later, you will go back to backender. We take great care with hiring people for specific roles. For example, hire great front-enders who are great at front-end. And if someone wants to switch the specialty, what they're doing, we want them to be really certain that this is what they want to do, and we will basically drill them as new hires.
I do want to kind of add to that. If you say do your internship in front end, and you go, thanks so much, definitely not for me, definitely want to return to back end. If we have collected enough data to assess that you would be a great functioning graduate backend engineer, you can transition to a backend. If we haven't, so we say we get to the end of the 3 months and we're like, oh, look, we've only done 1 week of backend work, we would actually re-interview you into a backend role. But in saying that, you could come in and get a front-end role and we'll work on transitioning to a backend. We just want to make sure that, you know, you do get to where you want to be in the end, and you're so early on in your career. We don't expect you to know where you want to be, but internal mobility is a thing. We just want to make sure that, you know, you're as productive as possible in that role.
There's a question about full stack roles, which is an interesting one. We do not have dedicated full stack roles. We have specialties: front-end specialty, back-end, infrastructure, data, security, and probably a couple of others which are in a baking. That being said, if you feel confident about the changes you want to make in a specialty across, like, no one is going to stop you from contributing to a different specialty. For example, myself, all the PRs I have open right now are backends, because there are a couple of changes I need to make in a couple of services. And in order to enable my team, front-enders in my team, in moving faster, I'm being a backend engineer right now. I'm still being a front-ender. It's not like I have to transition and ask anyone for approval. Hey, I want to do backend for those 2 weeks. It's just there's work to be done, and you get access to the entire code base. You can go to someone else's backend service or front-end components, make the changes there. We have the system of ownership in the code base. So each piece of the code, each chunk of the code base is owned by a person or a people. Whenever making changes, you can make any changes you want, but the owner will need to approve those changes. And usually, if you're well-intentioned and you have changes which will, like, speed you up, you just submit a PR, ask them for review, maybe walk them through the changes. And more often than not, people are like, yeah, those are reasonable changes, go on, merge it. I don't really care that you're a front-ender and you're contributing to backend, because it's not what matters. What matters is shipping value to users. There's also a question about the computer science degree, and there's a question whether I think from Dennis about my degree. I have a degree from Poland, from EU, and the question specifically is whether the having a degree from this uni or that uni would impact your application. And I should probably watch my words right now. I would say during the engineering interview, we don't really look at resumes. I personally don't. Like I trust people like Jess to match me with who've got good candidates who are promising. And what is tested during the engineering interview, those 3 sessions, is just your skills. We want to see whether you are smart, whether you can solve problems. You don't have to know everything, but one aspect we're looking at, if you have a problem and you don't know how to solve it, you can work out a solution which is reasonable and good enough in a limited amount of time. And now over to Jess, who will tell you what kind of criteria we're looking for when it comes to degrees.
I don't know if that stressed me out that you don't look at people's resumes, but you did have a good answer. Yes, we screened them for you. No. So in an opposite way, so one of our UX designers actually has a CS degree, but they haven't formally studied design, and the same goes for CS. So if you have actually, to reverse this a little bit, a study has found that all university graduates, actually 60% of them have to do additional study outside to actually be on track with where industry is. So the thing that we look for is projects, participating in hackathons, GitHub profile. That's a great way to kind of show the work that you're contributing, and just kind of societies, meetup groups. They're the things that kind of stand out. So absolutely not, don't need CS background. Is there anything that you will personally criticize about working with Canva? John,
that's a very good question.
That is a really good question.
Jess, you start.
Me start. Look, you're spot on. Actually, Canva is super positive. And look, you will gain 5 to 10 kilos, as Tomek said, when you join, from our amazing food that is sourced from our farm. Everyone has a hard time answering. I think at Canva, be prepared to be uncomfortable. Things are always moving very quickly, so you have to be agile in the way that you work. Even things like teams, groups, they're ever evolving, because we're going through this kind of, they grow big, then we need to break it down to be productive again, which in contrast is actually a massive challenge, and you see a lot of growth through it. But yeah, be prepared to be out of your comfort zone. Tomek?
I think Canva is growing. Canva is growing fast, and this pace may not be the best for everyone. I still encourage everyone to try, because it's you don't know until you join. My previous companies before Canva, for example, were much more structured, followed more process, and I also work for external customers as opposed to working on a product. I think this part is really great, but the Canva is much more flexible in terms of like allowing you to work in your way, and also making more space for, what kind of needs, how to put this? You can. There's much more flexibility in terms of like how you want to work, or how your team wants to work, which sometimes may be frustrating when you have a different working style than others. For me, it was a bit hard when I first joined. It was like I was used to much more processes. I was used to more organized kind of work, more heavy management. Canva is more about trusting people, and trusting people are responsible, which I think is a gain skill. Another aspect which I wouldn't say criticize. I will criticize it. We are growing. We have a lot of engineers. They are spread across different groups, different teams, and sometimes communication between those groups can be hard, can be challenging, especially if you have one group which wants to move in that direction, and this group which cares about the other kinds of metrics. And there are times where the communication is hard because of different priorities, and sometimes it's not clear who should resolve those priorities, especially if like with both those teams have projects which are blocked on each other. Yeah.
I like the hard questions. That was a good question. I'm just going to quickly jump in. So Mia has a question about applications. So they will be closing in May. We will update the job ad so you have plenty of time to see, although we are reviewing applications as we speak. So sooner the better.
Interesting one. How do you have 400 front-enders and we don't end up with spaghetti? I would say this, the conscious choices of, for example, choosing Mobix instead of Redux to, yes, there is a Jeremy at Canva, sorry. Sorry, wrong question. The using specific tool choices which allow teams to be more siloed from each other and make decisions with isolation from others. So this enables them to move faster. But usually when you submit a PR, when you make changes, those changes will have to go through someone that has more context than you. It can be the owner of a code base. It can be your teammate that has been here longer. It can be your buddy, your mentor. But it's not like you just code, raise a PR, and submit it, merge it without anyone looking at it. Usually, at least one person will have to review your changes, and if there is a good amount of focus on making sure that those changes are not just written in a hacky ways just to push the product forward, but they are also done in a scalable way. So if you, for example, if you submit a PR to me, which I deem to be too hacky, I won't approve it. I will ask you, okay, now is the time to refactor this code. Please go back, change all the occurrences of this function, change the interface. Please make sure this can be scaled up in the future. Yeah. There was a question about naming, I think, from Jeremy. I guess it depends. Like, we don't have a set name policy. For example, my email is tomek@canva.com. Recently, a very annoying thing happened. Another Tomek joined, and he chose the last name at canva.com just because I took over the first name at canva.com. Usually, it's people accept something like the first name dots the first letter of the last name. If your name is unique, then you can just have this. If you have a nickname, you can use a nickname if it's close enough to your last name, so that it's like you're discoverable.
Or on the other hand, your name could be Jessica, which is one of the most common female names. We actually have a club, a Slack club, and we're slowly taking over the world. We've got like a product manager, program manager, designer, UX designer. So, we're getting there. It's going to be a small startup within Canva based purely on Jesses. I'm very excited.
Well, it can be worse/better, depends on how you look at it. We have 2 Jesses with the same last name, and they have a Slack channel just for them, and where they post each time someone confuses them. So one of them is getting the packages for another, and the other one is invited to events for the first one. It's
quality content. John, coming up with another question. So pertaining to soft skills, do you have any traits that you prefer in candidates during the hire process and further on while working with them? I'm going to explain this very briefly through our growth and development framework. So essentially, we have 4 main pillars. So it's your craft. So if you're a software engineer, that's your ability to code. And then the second is communication, leadership, and strategy. So we're looking to kind of perfect across all of those 4 things. Also not chasing perfections, just pursuing excellence. When you join, we're going to be looking at a lower level. So we're not expecting you to, for example, lead teams of 150 people as a graduate engineer. But in that same leadership, we look at how do you manage your personal day? Are you able to manage conflicting interests and prioritize? And then slowly developing from our Canva U team who create workshops based on all of those different areas across the 4 pillars. Does that explain? But it always ties back to craft, communication, strategy, and leadership.
Two questions there. Do we usually look to develop new libraries to do what we need or rely upon existing libraries? I think that's an excellent question. And there are different factions at Canva. One faction really wants to reuse a lot of things. The other one really wants to I don't want to say reinvent the wheel, but sometimes reinventing the wheel really is a better choice. We have a really extensive page in our engineering handbook specifically on this topic, whether to use a library or not. There are reasons when to use it or not to use it. So for example, bundle size is one important aspect. Libraries usually have much more stuff that we need them for. An example can be React Beautiful DND, which the website Bundlephobia says it would add 32 kilobytes of code to our minified artifacts. We have a performance team at Canva that they look at constantly decreasing the size of assets we have to serve to users in the browser in order to speed up the time to render and time to first interaction. I think it's something like time to first meaningful interaction or meaningful render. That's why I'm not on the performance team. But the main point is like the less code we have to send over the wire, the faster it will be downloaded, the faster it will be evaluated. And every addition of like another third-party library will contribute to the size, especially if you include the giant library just to use a small piece of it. Maybe it's easier to just implement this small piece from scratch. There is also the question of whether how well the library is maintained and what is the contract between their maintainers, developers, versus and whether their direction will be aligned with our direction. So there are examples with libraries completely changing from version to version how they work like, and we want to avoid that. The upside of using libraries, as I said, not to reinvent the wheel. If someone already solved a problem, maybe just take their solution instead of spending a few weeks implementing it. We have a table, a scorecard, which we can use to evaluate whether it's a good choice to use a library. There are entries like whether the library is authored by an organization with a reputation for quality, whether it's under active development by that reputable organization. And by organization, I mean things like Facebook, Google, Yahoo. Does it have a public CI build? Can it be implemented in-house in less than 1 hour, less than 1 day? Would it take more than 1 month to implement it in-house? Is it a library which is generally well known in the industry? And then we sum up the score, and that's a thumb guide of like, if the score is high, then probably it's fine to just rely on this library. If score is low, then either you need a really good use case. One use case, for example, for library which didn't pass the score, but we still ended up using was something for parsing CSV. It was generally accepted that parsing CSVs is painful. There are a lot of edge cases, exceptions, and it's much better to rely on something third party, which is like focusing only on this rather than implement this in-house. How that answers the question. The next one is about features and deadlines deciding Canva. Unless just you want to.
Yeah, there's just been someone's question has drowned, so I'm gonna call it out. Kaiki, would you like? Sorry, did I pronounce your name correctly? Would you like to come off mute?
Yeah, hello.
Hello.
Yeah, thanks, Jess and Tomic. So I asked the question about whether if you apply for backend and frontend, both of the roles, would you get interviewed twice, or like will the interview get combined into one big one? I don't know. So like I think Mozamo answered that already. Is that right?
Great question, because this happens all the time. So what you'll actually do is during your call with Van, you're actually going to go through essentially both options. She'll help you kind of understand maybe where your strengths lie to get your foot in the door. But she'll communicate to me that, hey, Kaiki really wants to work on a project that's a bit more full stack. If you know Java, you may go down the back end route just to get your foot in the door. If you know JavaScript, go down that end. So you won't do both interviews. That's where the decision will be made. But in saying that, remember, the internship is to kind of figure out what you like. If you get to the end and you're like, nah, really didn't like back end, we may interview you in front end for a front end graduate position. Or if we've collected enough data to determine you're a really well-functioning front-end engineer, you'll just go straight to offer.
There was a question about...
Cool, I think that answered my question.
Sorry. Okay. Something about deadlines and features. So regarding deadlines, we have the... Sorry, what was that?
There you go.
Okay. Regarding deadlines, we have the huge advantage of working in a company where we build our own product, which means majority of deadlines are imposed onto ourselves, which also means it's it's not end of the world if a deadline is missed. But I'm not saying that we're not keeping, like we're not worrying about deadlines at all. It's just the penalty. There isn't definitely any management here shouting at you if you miss a deadline. There aren't people working overnight just to match the date which someone put down on a spreadsheet. Usually when we have deadlines like this, it's for good reasons. For example, there's a coordinated market campaign and there's a lot of work that needs to be done. But most of the times we work in a seasonal cadence where teams will set goals for the whole season. Like this season in autumn, we want to achieve these, we want to implement these big projects. And everyone will do their best. And it's, I would say it's fine if the work is delayed. Usually the work is delayed due to external factors. I know a security incident, there was an event for the whole company. The project that we thought would take 2 weeks actually is much more complex, and it will take 6 months for whatever reason. And usually that's fine. Regarding who comes up with those features, we have the not product team. We have product managers and product designers, and we have engineering, and all of those 3 specialties collaborate to ensure that to work out the vision, work out the mission for each of the teams. And then there's a bunch of factors, like there are projects which are quick wins, which we can implement quickly and, for example, increase the metrics or deliver value to users. There are more strategic projects which will take longer, and there are also cool features that we care about to have in the product. It's a constant game of balancing what the teams can work on to ensure that everyone involved is happy. So it's a constant collaboration, constant collaborative work.
And kind of to help, so the values set crazy big goals, make them happen. The way that we're structured is very much a matrix. So what I mean by that is we will have what we call groups, and they're working towards a common goal. So for example, presentations group are working to be the best presentations product in the world. Within that group, they have the resources they need to set and achieve goals to the best of their ability. So for example, product managers, designers, engineers, project managers, HR, you will all find dedicated to that group. So it's not like, okay, well, you need to go visit front-end engineering, which is located on level 5, and then you've got a meeting on level 2 with product management. It's all cohesive, and yeah, so just following on. All right, we might do. This is a good question. Tomek, what's the frequency of meetings for a normal developer?
It's interesting because in my team we just had the survey. Survey. We on a most recent retrospective, there was a bunch of cards saying that we meet too often. The result was interesting because it seems like it's not like we meet too often inside the team. It's more like there are out of a team activities. Global. Every Tuesday we do something called global sit down, which used to be a stand up before the pandemic, but right now, since everyone is sitting for their laptops, it's just sit down. So it's a way to update the company of what's happening. There are things like that. There are show and tells, which is a way for the whole group to come together and show what cool things have been built, what are the changes happening, and there are a lot of there are weeks where there might be a lot of things like this. But if you're working in a team, it's definitely up to the team to decide what kind of process you want to follow. And most people don't like meetings. So the tendency will be to minimize meetings. You will have people who will complain about like, hey, can we do this? Can we not do this as a meeting? Let's do this on Slack or on Slack. The one change that happened, I think last year, was a meetless Wednesday. So right now, all Wednesdays until 2 p.m. are mandated as a meet-free time. So for example, if you schedule a meeting with me, which happens on a Wednesday before 2 p.m., I'll just decline it and say like, look, find another time. Like this is my focus time. This is focus time for everyone in the company. So it really depends. I would say for normal developer, it's pretty relaxed in terms of meetings. There are team meetings. There might be some other activities which you can choose to attend, but it's up to you. Jess, what is your favorite spot in the office?
Yeah, I love this question. Look, it depends. It depends on my mood. If it's a Friday afternoon, I will sit up on the rooftop and sit in the sun, wearing my Bunnings hat and sunscreen, which is provided by the office because I have very fair skin and burn easily. And just relax with ice cream now, because we can have ice creams. We just got an ice cream box on the roof. So yeah, that's probably my favorite. Tomek? I know it's so cliche.
I think a rooftop, not for ice cream box. Like I like the rooftop because usually there's not that many people in there. So you can feel the air. You can look at the city skyline. Yeah. Bunning hats are. I'm not sure if they're provided by Canva. Like we have like 20 bunning hats on the rooftop, I think.
Yeah. So there's like 30 on the roof, just hanging out on the roof, but plenty of liters of sunscreen to go around. Yeah, look, it really sold me as well, Shrey. This is a really good question. Also, I really appreciate those who have stuck around. I understand we are major over time, but just want to try and get to as many questions as possible. Are there any initiatives at Canva to prevent burnout in devs? And this extends beyond just devs, I would say. It's for broader Canva. Throughout the entire recent events, well, not so recent anymore, we lead with compassion, and that was reinstated at last week's sit down by Mel. We don't expect people to leave that is less than 3 hours. If you need to go pick up your kid from school, you pick up your kid from school. We have additional 3 days of sick leave every year, no questions asked. This time is for you. We have an employee assistance program, which is, I think it's 20 one-on-one sessions with a trained psychologist. This is extended to your family members and friends as well if they need it. We have a health and wellbeing program, which is multiple classes every day on Zoom and in person. They're returning in person so it's like yoga, and then we've got our gym as well in the office. And of course, just prioritizing leave. You take your leave, you need to rest. We always encourage rest and rejuvenation to be your best self. If that was just a few options.
Just I think that there are a couple of questions relating to hiring process. The one of them was about the how many would apply for internships and grad jobs, how many would we take, what the trends are. And there was another one about if it is possible to do the whole internship remotely.
Lots of questions in one. So for our internship program, we do encourage you to come actually into the office because a lot more interaction actually happens face-to-face, natural communication, conversations, team building. But that is also, of course, led as long as it is safe. And we cover your accommodation, your flights throughout the 3 months that you're with us so that you don't have that financial burden. We actually have a dedicated person who helps you navigate living in Sydney for 3 months. So that's great. One question that has popped up is we have over 200 job openings in Canva, and it's not short on application. How many would apply? How many would you take on? And are there any trends that you notice in successful applicants? Yeah, so Canva's growing like crazy. There's no hiding that. We are, I think it's the second fastest SaaS company, growing SaaS company in the world at the moment. And with that comes increase in applications. I think last year, not graduate specific, but last year across the board, we had 137,000 applications. But in saying that, we have extraneous recruitment processes that ensure the best people for Canva work here and are hired here. We have people who have joined from all over the world, that have come to move to Sydney or are tuning in from overseas. What was I going to say next? How many graduate positions? We're taking over 80 graduates this year as well. Yes, I lost my, yeah, I know it's 6:30. This went fast. I think we might wrap up with one final question. If anyone would like to pop it in chat, or maybe just copy and paste yours that we have missed in the endless scroll. And then we may wrap up.
Okay, decent side projects are essential for grad. So the question is about whether decent side projects are essential for graduates who do not have professional experience to be competitive. It's probably up to, it's more in a Jess's course in terms of like just screening your application and making sure that you match what we're looking for. During the interviews themselves, no. I know that this may be brutally honest, but okay, I won't say it as brutal, but we don't look at your side projects. We test your skills during the interview. We try to gauge your actual knowledge. As much as like having side projects might be a positive negative thing, this may also like it's a bit exclusive because not everyone may have time to do side projects. Sometimes people want to hire people, but they don't have time for side projects due to real life obligations, and we don't want to exclude them. Therefore, it might be a really small factor, I presume, while screening, but I don't think it's a huge factor, or it's not a factor at all when doing the actual hiring. Is that correct, Jess, or did I
Yeah, no, so you're very spot on. So it's because they've been screened kind of from the recruitment stage. So just imagine you are kind of all on a level playing field currently studying. You want to kind of highlight how you're passionate about the industry. So whether that is through participating in hackathons, side projects, your GitHub, or kind of doing well in certain courses, these are all not essential. We are not expecting you to be perfect. Just think of ways that you can kind of put your best foot forward. Remember, your CV is a reflection of who you are. And when writing your resume, put things on there that you would be proud to tell your family about. So you won a hackathon prize. Be proud to tell them about that. Celebrate that. You did a kick-ass side project. You're proud of that. Include that. So yeah, not essential, but is always looked at if you do include it, She.
And also remember that the requirements for internships and graduates are lower than for normal roles. The requirements for normal roles, as in the junior mid engineers, are lower than for senior engineers. Requirements for senior engineers are lower than for leadership roles. So if you were applying for, let's say, a team leader or a group leader role, engineering group leader role, probably we would look really hard about like what you've done in the past. But if it's a graduate position or internship, we are like, how to put this, prior experience is not necessary. We're more looking for smart people that we will be able to take in and upskill.
Yeah, spot on. It's all relative. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much again for taking in the time, all of your fantastic questions. You can find both Tomek and I on LinkedIn, or you can feel free to email us. My email, my gosh, my brain is dead. Jessica.b@canva.com. And then Tomek, if you would prefer via LinkedIn.
Email is fine. I'm not really on LinkedIn. I have an account there, but like I'm opening it maybe once per month. So you can send me an email, tomek@canva.com. So basically my first name @canva.com. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, have a lovely evening, everyone. It's been a blast. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Cheers.